Buenos dias. My name is Fred Sandoval. I'm the Executive Director for the National Latino Behavioral Health Association. So excited to be here with you today, along with my co-host, the esteemed Alicia Montaño, with the Office of Peer Recovery and Engagement with the State of New Mexico's Behavioral Health Services Division. We have two incredible guests that we're going to spend some wonderful time with today, and I'm just excited for the opportunity to have today's program called Pláticas, Tenemos voz, Latino peers in recovery. So a plática is simply a conversation. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to have a conversation with our two remarkable guests, and they have made such great effort to be here with us today. Thanks to Malaysia for making sure that we were able to come forward with our plática, as we have been doing for almost 2 years now. And we so greatly appreciate the support of the state of New Mexico, but more importantly, today's conversation is going to be very enlightening. We're going to talk about an innovative approach that helps engage peers in the judicial system in a way that you're going to really appreciate to hear about today. So that's our program. And so today what we're going to do is I'm going to ask Malaysia to start with the introductions of our special guests. And she'll also introduce herself because, she's kind of a shy type sometimes, but I want her to take liberties to introduce herself today too, because what we know is because of her support and her vision, she has helped make peer support workers in the state of New Mexico preeminent advocates for ensuring that people with lived experiences, with circumstances and lives that have altered their trajectory, now are of service to communities. And it's exciting to be here with all of them today. So, Malaysia, I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce yourself, of course, and our esteemed guests.
Thank you, Fred. So good to see you both here with us today, and thank you for joining us, Judge Lydard and CPSW Sixto Aguirre, and not just CPSW, but a friend. I can call Sixto a friend, and Judge also. We go back before I was able to accept this position. I'm Alicia Montaño Familia, and I am the Office of Peer Recovery and Engagement Program Manager. I'm honored to be here on every Plática. This collaboration with NALBA is key. We get to interview peers from across the state, and then we get to get some feedback. And today's guests, I'm just like, I'm so psyched to get this going. First, I'll introduce our judge, and I'll tell you a little bit about him, and then we'll move on to Sixto. And then, of course, like Fred said, agarren el café, grab your coffee, your tea. It's going to be a good one. So I'll start off with Judge Lydard, and I'm going to need my glasses for this one. Fred.
Yeah.
Honorable Jason. Honorable Jason Judge Lydard. He is the First Judicial District Court of New Mexico Honorable Juez, judge for the First Court of New Mexico. He was appointed to the bench in April 2018. The First Judicial Judge District includes Santa Fe, Rio Arriba, Los Alamos, and Los Alamos counties. While on the bench, Judge Lydard has presided over the drug court, the First Judicial District, and has held assignments in both RA County, Santa Fe counties. Prior to his appointment, he worked as an assistant DA with the First Judicial District Attorney's Office since 2011. Before that, Judge Lydard briefly served as an attorney at the New Mexico Legal Aid. In 2010, that's when I got clean and sober, Judge. 2010. 7/17/2010. And he was a federal public defender with the Office of the Federal Defenders for District of Maine in 2009 to 2010. In the political sense arena, he has served in the Colorado General Assembly for 3 years, 2004 to 2007. Judge received a bachelor's degree from Ohio University. He went on to complete a JD at the University of Maine School of Law. He was admitted to the practice in New Mexico in 2011. We're blessed to have you here. And named Prosecutor of the Year in 2012. I also consider Judge Lydard not just an advocate, but, and a mentor. But somebody who I hold near and dear to my heart. And then let's move on to Mr. Sixto Aguirre, CPSW, Rio Arriba County. He's a certified peer support worker in RA County. He started using and drinking at the age of about 10, and soon progressed to smoking marijuana to partially deal with the loss of his abuelita, of his grandmother. After moving from Utah to New Mexico, he frequently got in fights at school, and other children made fun of him being half Mexican. His mother sent him back to Utah at the age of 12, where he got into gangs and drugs and crystal meth. At the age of 17, Sixto was sent back to New Mexico, where he began using cocaine and crack. After the loss of his daughter's mother, in a DWI crash, the courts removed Sixto's daughter due to addiction. Sixto and I have a lot in common. In 2016, during a drug-induced binge, Sixto passed out in his truck with his 6-year-old son in the back seat. You know, today, you guys, we're going to be talking about real talk. So I hope that, you know, I mean, if you have a box of tissue too, you know, but we're not those people anymore, right? Sixto isn't that person anymore. But he's not afraid to say where he's come from, because he goes back into those fires on a daily basis to pull people out and help them get right. And it's the stories that we get to tell about ourselves that inspire not only judges, colleagues like Fred, and to put us on a platform where we can talk about, you know, that stuff, that real talk. And I think this platform is amazing, an amazing place to do that. After being incarcerated, he had a short stay at a recovery center. You know, Sixto made the choice to become sober for his children. He started attending recovery meetings and channeling his energy into positive activities like he does now. Sixto took classes to become a CPSW and passed the test, where a judge hired him to run a peer-supported probation program. You know, he now stays clean and sober to be a positive role model for his children and in his community, right there in the fires that I talked about. You know, you're going to hear a lot today from Judge Lydard and Sixto, and I'm sure that he will mention his sobriety date for you all. But I feel so good today. I feel so, like, you know, honored to be here with both of you guys, and welcome to this amazing Plática. Now, you know, I'm going to turn it over to Fred so he can get this started. And again, we thank you, sir.
Thank you, Melissa.
Wonderful introductions. And all I could say is, Belisha, again, thank you for your leadership and your bravery, because you, as you said, this is real talk, ¿verdad? And this is a safe place. This is the right place. And we already have a few folks that are already coming on live on Facebook. So a little shout out to Juan Sanchez, the esteemed Dr. Mercedes Martinez, Leslie Hayes, and we have so many more folks joining us. We have the highest number of online viewers today than we've had for some time. And that means this is something people are excited to hear about. So let's get right into it. So Honorable Jason C. Lydard, a district court judge with the First Judicial District in northern New Mexico. You covered 3 counties. You have seen just about everything imaginable in both your career and in the work you've done as an attorney in different capacities, and now as the district court judge. But there's a lot more to the judge than just that professional resume. There's just something about you, Judge, that compels you to be of service to communities. And all I could say is, we'd like to know a little bit more about the judge, right? Because there's just something you bring to your service that probably wasn't your JD paper and documentation. This is all about you. And I wanted to get to know the judge a little bit. Say a little bit more about yourself, and then we'll ask Cisco to do the same.
Of course. Well, I just want to start off by thanking everybody for allowing me to be here and to share my story and the work that I do in the community that I care so dearly about. Um, so I was born and raised in the Cleveland, Ohio area on the west side of the city. I lived there throughout my childhood until I was 18 and went off to college at the Ohio University. After that, as Militia stated, I moved to Denver, Colorado, and I worked for the Colorado General Assembly in the Legal Services office there, and really solidified my passion for the law while there. It was something that was developing in me at a young age. I remember going to the play To Kill a Mockingbird and seeing the venerable fictional character Atticus Finch and thought, that is amazing that someone can apply their mental skills and abilities to try to bring about justice in a system and in our world. And it was something that I was very passionate about throughout college. And when I was able to go to Colorado and work in a legal services office, it really solidified the fact that I wanted to work in that field. So then I moved to the great state of Maine, where I went to law school. And then when I completed law school, I moved back west and I took the bar in New Mexico. And the first place I got a job was at the district attorney's office in Santa Fe. And I began my career there. And as part of my career, I got assigned to handle narcotics cases and investigations. And it was something that I was very passionate about. The fact that the people that were on the other end of the charges that I was dealing with were individuals who oftentimes were involved in the criminal justice system due to their struggles with substance use. And it was something that really started to hit home for me because my father, when he was 45 years old, passed away from a drug overdose, and I lost him. And my ability to have him in my life was terminated at that point in time. And I was seeing a lot of characteristics in my father and the individuals that were coming before the court in the cases that I was prosecuting. And I never lost sight of the humanity involved in the cases that I was dealing with, that behind each criminal charge is an individual who has a life with individuals in it who love and care about them and who rely on them and are dependent on them. And to never lose sight of the fact that when we're dealing with criminal law, we're dealing with human beings, and the decisions that we make have lasting consequences for them and everyone involved in their life. And it was my first ability to try to utilize the law in a way that would not only vindicate the wrongs that were being committed against society, but to try to right some of those wrongs in giving people resources so that those behaviors that brought them before the court might stop and they might move forward in their life in a productive manner. At the district attorney's office, I got involved in an alternative diversionary program called law enforcement assisted diversion, which further ingrained me in the practice of trying to find the humanity in the cases that were coming before me that I was dealing with, and to find an alternative approach to correcting those wrongs, something other than merely incarcerating individuals, because incarceration is proven throughout the years to not correct the behavior that we are trying to correct. It oftentimes, if not almost always, makes the situation worse and causes individuals to continue in their criminal behavior. So law enforcement assisted diversion, or as it was abbreviated, LEAD, was a program that I was tasked with trying to implement in Santa Fe County. And through that experience, I was able to work in trying to bring resources to individuals who were only involved in the criminal justice system because of their substance use and the circumstances of poverty. And it really showed me how effective certified peer support workers are in connecting with individuals who are involved in that criminal activity due to their substance use, and the benefits that peer support workers can bring to individuals by giving them someone that they can trust, someone that they can relate to, and to connect with in a way that they just can't with other individuals involved in the system. So in 2018, I became a judge. And as part of being a judge, I acquired a lot of authority and responsibilities. And part of my approach of being a judge was to try to assist individuals who were involved in the criminal justice system due to their substance use and the circumstances of their poverty, and help them try to get the resources necessary to bring stability to their life, bring stability to their substance use, and hopefully recovery, to help them move away from the criminal justice system and to move on in a more productive fashion in their lives. And it's been a very fulfilling experience. It's been enriching to see how that work can bring successes in the criminal justice system, and to bring people into a situation in their life that is outside of the criminal justice system. And that is how I got connected with Sixto Aguirre, and to do the work that we do today in a program that we started called Peer Supported Probation. And I'm sure we'll talk more about that, but at this time, I'll hand it back to you.
Oh my gosh, Judge, I hope I wasn't smiling too much while you were speaking. You actually maybe have to think a little bit about the North Shore a little bit, because anyone who's been to Cleveland knows that you're right at the shores of, I think it's Lake Erie, if I remember correct. But thank you for also, giving a personal story to this exchange. That's priceless, because and you said it, and this is actually, I'm not going to be able to ever forget this. I think the way you phrased it in terms of the humanity associated with the work that you do, that's priceless. I think in large measure, I think sometimes we lose sight of the humanity of what we're here to do as public servants. So Judge, thank you for that incredible introduction. And yeah, we are going to definitely talk about this program that in many respects is so innovative that it may actually almost turn our way of thinking upside down. But it's in line with the trend that's been around for about 15 years. When we first started talking about jail diversion programs, drug courts, mental health courts, and then eventually programs like LEAD, all of that is talking about a progressive approach to ensuring that we can help the people we're here to serve. So, Judge, thank you for the introduction, and let's go over to Sixto Aguirre, and I think Melisha, to add to your introduction, all I could say is Sixto is really kind of a living example of really how that humanity looks in these instances. So, Sixto, please say a little bit more about yourself, and then we're going to go on to talk a little bit more about the program.
All right. So my name's Sixto Aguirre. So a little bit about myself. September 29, 7 years ago, I was on a binge. I happened to have my son with me, passed out at the wheel, got arrested. All I remember of that day, because I blacked out, was I remember asking the officer why I was getting arrested, this and that, and he had let me know that I passed out at the wheel here in front of at a stoplight. And I remember my son opening up the back window of my truck and him crying. And I just remember just thinking, man, I could have killed my son or somebody else, So right then and there, I just told myself I need help. So I was on probation and parole for a previous charge. And so I did have to, get incarcerated, which was fine. I needed to, but I did ask probation and parole if they would help me get into a treatment center because I needed help. So I remember, I think I spent 30 days in Tierra Maria here in Rio Riba County. And after those 30 days, I went to treatment at OI here in Rio Riba County. It's in a little town north of here in Velarde. So I went there and I did my 3 months there. And while I was in there, I had met an individual. His last name was Abbott, and he was a CPSW. And I remember him just, sharing. Well, first of all, when he was saying that, all his criminal history, this and that, and that he was, was able to get a job like that, I didn't think it was possible, for people like me to get jobs like that, So I remember I got out of treatment, and I had to go to the whole court stuff, right? Like before I got sentenced. And all I remember is every time I was in that courtroom, it was actually Judge Lydiard that was the judge that finally sentenced me for that for that charge for passing out the will with my son. And all I remember is him talking with each individual at while they were in court, like they were an actual human being. He wasn't just like, okay, you're guilty, this and that. Like he actually like spoke to them, like, how's your day going? What are you going through in life? And I remember like, man, I've never known a judge to do that, right? To actually speak with an individual like they're an actual human being. And I even remember my mother being there too, and she even said, well, man, this judge is really different. I was like, I know, like, he really cares about us, So eventually when I finally got sentenced, I remember the DA, they did want to send me to prison, and finally on the sentencing day, I had already enrolled into classes I was taking for LADAC. I was in our college taking classes here in Española. And I remember, the judge saying like, we're not going to send this individual, Sixto to prison. That's going to set him back if we do. He's still clean and sober. He's taking college classes. He's enrolled into taking his CPSW. So I'm going to give him 5 years probation instead. So I was very grateful about that. I was given a chance because I do believe if I would have got sent to prison, I wouldn't be the person I am right now, because in prison, it doesn't help, being incarcerated, it doesn't help us, it just makes us, and I shouldn't speak on everybody, but for everybody, but I know for myself, if I would have went to prison, I would have been a whole different person who I am now. So I'm just very grateful that I was able to, after I reached my 2-year sobriety, I was actually approached by militia and Judge Lydiard asking if I wanted to work with Judge Lydiard. So I remember even me and militia went to speak with Judge Lydiard when he was when his office was there in Santa Fe, and he, just explained to me that he would really like to work with me in the courts, to be his CPSW in the courts. So I remember working with him for I think it was an 11-month 11-month contract that militia, was able to get me with OPRI and Lifelink. So yeah, I'll leave it as that, like, for right there, because I know you guys have more questions, but that's just a little bit about myself.
Yeah, very powerful, Sixto. And what I particularly appreciate about someone whose life experiences has shaped and reshaped their decisions, and the image you had of your son looking out the window crying. It may be an instant just like that says, ya basta, because you knew so deep in your soul that you needed to make a change because of the fear that you experienced. And so thank you for sharing that very personal, very intimate example. But for the judge to now then understand the significance of that experience, just as you said, what's going on in your life, right? For a judge to ask that question has such therapeutic value, as we say in this line of work. But I want to now talk about the program because I can tell you, Alicia is like ready to with her questions. So I better get to these other questions because this is just an incredible program, and all I can tell you is we have more people joining us now than ever, and we have just a ton of folks who are commenting on our live Facebook, and we're going to acknowledge those folks in just a little bit. But so, Judge, so here we are. The program you described about peers being involved in the judicial system is, in some standards, could be seen as very radical, but yet on the other hand, it is so practical and makes so much sense, right? And so tell us a little bit about the motivation. What compelled you to say, I think we can tap into these community assets, individuals who can be of service to community because they have turned things around. They are making a difference in their own lives, lives of their kids. But there's something that compelled you, Judge, to be able to say, I think this can fit in line with the decisions I make, in line with the way our system works. So, Judge, tell us about how the program works, and then we'll go over to Sixto to talk about how that role of the peer fits in that. And then Alicia will be ready for a couple more questions for you all. So, Judge, please go ahead.
So it was something that was in my mind from the time I was a prosecutor, that my experience in the courtroom of watching cases being called in front of the judges I was practicing in front of was that an individual would come to court, enter into a plea agreement, or be convicted after a trial, and then be sentenced, and oftentimes be placed on probation. And when they got on probation, then they quickly start coming back into the courtroom. And they were coming back into the courtroom on violations of their probation. And the violations that they were coming back into the courtroom for weren't oftentimes because of new offenses being committed, but rather most often because of technical violations of their probation conditions. And the violations that consistently people were coming back on were: 1, failing to report; 2, testing positive for substance use; and 3, not completing a mandatory treatment requirement. And I watched that happen for years as a prosecutor. And then I became a judge, and I had the same experience happening in front of me as the presiding judge. And I always thought that there must be a better way to address these issues, because what happens when a person violates probation is they get taken into custody. They get taken into custody and they sit there until they see a judge. And it takes a few days for them to see the judge. And when they come in front of the judge on a technical violation where there's not a new crime involved, oftentimes they're released back onto probation. And despite being released, all of the consequences of the several days that they spent in jail have already taken hold. And they take a hold within 24 or 48 hours. It only takes a short time for an incarceration stay to really change a circumstance that the person was in before they were taken into custody. If they had a job, they oftentimes have already lost that job after 24 hours or 48 hours of not reporting to their employment because they're incarcerated. If they were maybe on a wait list to get onto methadone or to get into a treatment program, then they've just lost that opportunity because they weren't there to take advantage of it when the slot opened up. Or maybe they had an appointment with a primary care physician to maybe get prescribed methadone and they missed that appointment. Or maybe they just lost their ability to pay their rent on time, and now they're getting released and they've got an eviction notice on their front door. And then on top of it, the effect that it has on all the people that are involved in their life, is specifically the people that depend on them, like their spouse. Within 24, 48 hours, the support that that spouse had from the person who was taken into custody is now lost, and that creates a significant burden on that individual that now has to serve both roles. And then the children that are involved, you know, you take a parent away from a child for 24 hours, that really has an adverse effect on that child. And they wonder if their parent is ever coming home again. So there's these huge effects by this short-term incarceration for these technical violations. And I always thought, is there a way that we can maybe avoid that from happening in the first place? And when you look at what really brings about these violations, they sort of work hand in hand. When we put somebody on probation, we tell them you're not allowed to use controlled substances anymore. And we're going to test you to see if you do or you don't.
Right.
And this is a person who has a substance use disorder. So they're physiologically dependent upon it to use, that they need to use it to be well and to function. And then psychologically, their mind's always telling them that they need to use, and they're getting triggers and cravings to use. So just because a judge tells somebody you're not allowed to use drugs anymore doesn't mean that they're going to stop that very day or the next day or maybe a week or so down the line. It's going to take some time to get there because it took them a long time to get where they're at. It's going to take them some time to get past that. But yet we're telling them you need to report to probation. When you report to probation, you're going to get tested to see if you're using. And oftentimes when a person tests positive, they're going to be taken into custody. And because a person knows that they're going to be tested when they report to probation, oftentimes they're not going to show up at all. So they're going to fail to report because they don't want to have to go to that test and then be discovered that they're using substances and be taken into custody. So if they even get there to be tested is one thing, but oftentimes they don't report because they want to avoid that in the first place. And then there's other reasons why people fail to report. You know, not every individual that comes in front of the court has an Outlook calendar where they put their probation meeting on and they know that they have to report on Tuesday at 10 o'clock. Or maybe Tuesday at 10 o'clock isn't the best day for them because they have to work and they're stuck between that struggle of, do I go to work or do I go to my meeting? And if I go to my meeting and don't go to work, maybe I'll lose my job. Maybe they don't have reliable transportation, or the person that was going to give them a ride totally forgot and they just didn't get to make it. So there's a number of reasons that we could go on and talk about as to why people forget or fail to report, but there's a few right there. So there's the two reasons why people are violating right there, failing to report and positive urinalysis, but then is the mandatory treatment. Oftentimes, treatment is determined by not the individual who's going to be going to the treatment, but by someone else, like the judge or a prosecutor or the probation officer. And those individuals are not trained in the field of treatment. And we're making these decisions for somebody else who might not be ready to go into that treatment program. So we oftentimes set people up for failure because we impose treatment that they're not ready to engage in. And when they fail, then they're in violation. And when they fail and they're in violation, then they don't report to probation because they know that if they report, they're already in violation for not completing the mandatory treatment. So now they have another violation for failing to report. So these three technical violations sort of work together to create this perfect storm of violation, not because of a new crime, but because of a technical violation that oftentimes is going to result in them spending a few days in custody, creating all that disruption in their life, and then to be released to try to figure it out after that. And on top of it, the relationship that individuals have with their probation officer isn't the best. And this isn't any fault of probation because we sort of set them up for failure as well. We ask probation officers to serve two diametrically different roles. One, they're supposed to be the rehabilitator, the one who helps the person get their feet underneath them to move forward as a productive citizen in our community. So they need to serve like a social worker to help that person. But at the same exact time, they are the surveyor, the surveillance officer, monitoring to see if there's any type of violations that are happening or if the person's on the wrong track. And if so, they hold them accountable. So they're like a compliance officer at the same time of being a social worker. And if the person that you're going to for help is the same person that's going to have the authority to take you into custody because of a violation, you're going to be very hesitant to talk to them openly and honestly about what it is that you're facing and your circumstances in life. But if you're not able to talk to them openly and honestly about the circumstances in life that caused you to engage in criminal activity or to relapse and struggle, then how do you get connected with the resources that you need to avoid those further complications? So their ability to talk to their probation officer about what they need is inhibited by that, which interferes with their willingness to report and to address the issues that they need help with. So as I'm thinking about this and I'm dealing with all of this, I'm working with Sixto, and he's working to help people comply with conditions of release in a pretrial setting. And one thing he told me while he was working with me, he said, I talk to my clients all the time and they say, Judge, I'm willing to report to you, but I'm not willing to report to my probation officer. I don't have any desire to go and meet with them, but I'll meet with you anytime. And as I thought about that, I thought, maybe if we took the probation officer out of the situation for specific types of cases, low-level, nonviolent type of offense-related cases, and we connected these people with a peer support worker to do their supervision, maybe we would have greater compliance with reporting, and we would see people being open and honest about the circumstances that they face and that cause them to engage in criminal activity, so that they can actually be connected with the resources to stabilize their life and prevent them or stop them from having the need to engage in criminal activity. And I thought, if we do that, we can see if maybe we can change that behavior. And on top of it, remove the urinalysis requirement, because we know these individuals are going to be using. Like I said, they're physiologically and psychologically dependent upon these substances. Just because I say stop using doesn't mean they're going to stop. We need to help them to find their road to recovery. So we removed positive testing, and we also removed mandatory treatment. And all treatment is voluntary. And when you give a person that type of agency, that ability to control their life and have a say in the type of treatment that they're going to engage in, they're so much more likely to engage in that treatment because it's something that they're invested in. There's something that they're ready to take on. And by doing all those things, we started peer supported probation in the fall of 2020. It's been 3 years now. We've had 43 clients in that time. And in 3 years' time, we've seen an enormous increase in reporting by these individuals to their peer support worker, which is Sixto. We've also seen a reduction in incarceration for technical violations like failing to report positive urinalysis and failure to complete treatment. And we've seen an enormous reduction in criminal activity, recidivism. Out of those 43 clients in the last 3 years, we've seen only 4 individuals commit a new offense, which is an incredible statistical improvement in recidivism rates. So that's peer-supported probation. It was a way of trying to eliminate incarceration in short terms based upon technical violations for probation by transferring probation supervision from a probation officer to a peer support worker. And it's been an incredible experience to see the ability of a peer support worker to connect with somebody and help them get the resources that they really need to avoid criminal activity and improve their quality of life and get them on their road to recovery.
Wow. Well, all I could say, Judge, you've just inspired me. So I want you to know, what it takes to inspire me is something like this. That's the humanity Sixto was referring to, right? The judge cares about me, right? This notion about I'm willing to talk to the judge directly. In other words, don't have an intermediary, but me and the judge, right? Because the validity of what a person wants to say is to say the honest truth or to divulge their vulnerability and express it to someone who's going to listen to that. There's just so much to be said about this. All I can say is, Judge, I can see why you have such a fan base. right? And a fan base is this. It's a base of people who appreciate this change in philosophy, change in this paradigm, a change in the procedural aspects that really are barriers in the system, for you to recognize that and then to do something about it. New Mexico, we have something where that goes like this. I'm going to say it in Spanish and English, Judge. Right. So here you have started something. So what we say in New Mexico, algo comenzado no es algo completado. So you have started something that while it isn't complete yet, you are actually moving the dime. You're changing the outcomes already. When you gave those statistics, that is profound outcome. And I know I gotta have Alicia weigh in here, because all I could say is she's been so kind to really be listening attentively, which kind of expresses her humility. But I'm going to just turn it over to her, because between the folks that are on the live chat, and she can do some shout outs for us, for the folks that are live on Facebook here, she can now take over the rest of these questions with the time we have. So, Alicia, I'm going to just turn the driver's seat over to you, and I appreciate what I've heard here so far, because it tells us this story has to be retold somehow in more ways. So, Melisha, over to you.
Thank you. I've just been sitting here taking this all in, Judge. I love it. When you said the year, you know, that's the year that we decided to do the pilot when I came to Opry. And I just gotta say that Sixto, it was a pilot. It was like, let's check and see. Fred, we went through probation and parole, and to see, and, you know, wrote a letter and we said, we have an idea. So they had to be on board. You know, a judge was on board. These two met. It was like, it was an amazing mix. You know, I got to meet Judge when I was working in the jail. So he trusts humans, you know, and when we get to treat each other like humans, then magic happens. And I'm just like, I'm just proud, because after that pilot, it's, you know, not only did Rio Arriba County see that Sixto was a man of his word, because we got to prove that we are, you know, that we are who we are. He was offered a position. And so when I see CPSWs going out in their communities, making a difference, and then the community seeing this, and then them being approached, you know, like, would you like a job for the county so that you can keep on doing what you're doing, so that then more can emerge and create teams? I just, I'm floored. I've never heard Judge talk so passionately, you know, about the program, and it's going to continue. And we started this up with SOAR funding to help Sixto get on, and we still have that peer employment project, and you know, going. And with that being said, I also want to hear from Sixto on what, you know, what's going on, and like, how do you hope to accomplish, you know, and what do you hope to accomplish with this innovative program? Like, I mean, are you going to add to the team? You know, what's in the works? I know that Opry has something, you know, in the works behind the scene about another training for forensics. We have a program manager, Shannon Baum, who is, and it's in the newsletter and it's out, and we want to train people so that they can be part of what you guys are doing, and in different parts of New Mexico, hopefully getting more judges on board to do this, and more probation. But with that being said, I'm just super proud. And I mean, what I'm hearing today, I've never not had to speak. Do you know what I mean? Because I want to hear so much from the two guests. Go ahead, Six, or whoever wants to.
So I was really honored when, you know, Militia and Judge Lydard wanted me to be part of this, you know, and they're both of them I've looked up to, you know. I care about them, and because they're both passionate of what they do, you know, and just been, you know, given the opportunity, you know, it's been a real blessing, you know. And I remember I was doing the pre-trial services, and just like Militia said, it was a SOAR grant. I didn't have an office, my truck was my office, I would meet the clients at parks, at McDonald's, that's how I would meet my clients. I would drive up to TA, get my clients assigned there. If they were released there that day from jail, I would give them a ride home, and that's how we would start the whole conversation of me working with them, things that we were going to accomplish, either them getting on MAT or reporting to regular probation and parole, taking them grocery shopping, assisting them getting healthcare provider, things like that. It just before I got clean and sober, I didn't care about anybody, but when I got clean and sober, it made me care about everybody. So it felt good being able to help these individuals, like when I was back in those days, because I never got that type of assistance. I'm not saying it wasn't out there, it just I didn't receive that type of assistance. So I remember when Judge Lydard, after it was coming close to our 11-month for that SOAR grant, and I remember Judge Lydard asking me if I wanted, he spoke about the peer supported probation and asked me if it was something I'd be interested in doing. And I was like, yes, because first of all, I loved working, with Judge Lydard, on the 11-month SOAR grant, but then also getting rid of the whole probation and parole, giving the clients. So like with peer supported probation, the clients meet with myself twice a week, and with the judge twice a month. Every other Friday we meet. But when they meet with me, I don't tell them when they need to come and see me. We sit down and we talk, and I ask them when can they come and see me, because I don't want to give them, okay, come on Monday at 2:00, but then they have to work or just something comes up. So we communicate like when's the best time for them to come in, and then we also just let them know, like Judge Lydard was saying, we don't do drug tests, so they're not going to get violated for that. We want them to be honest with them, because the more they're honest with us, we're able to help them more. And that's something, myself and Judge Lydard, we communicate with them a lot. Even when the clients meet with Judge Lydard, they're really honest with him, and he's able to communicate with them and let them know when they're honest with them about their substance use, what more resources we could offer them, to assist them, in that. So we don't push recovery on our clients. We do speak a lot about recovery, but we also speak about harm reduction, so using safe, with other individuals, carrying Narcan, things like that. In the program, I assist them with getting IDs, Social Security cards, getting SSI, things like that, the basic needs, which is really important, because I really do believe this. If we could help assist our clients in getting these small things, sooner, maybe not while they're in the program, they might not, get clean and sober, but they'll start taking those steps into that path of getting clean and sober. So I think it's really important, that we do things like that,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what I hear you saying is that you meet your clients where they're at, and that's exactly what a CPSW does, and what a person that cares, will say. I know that for me, when I was like getting like, you are going to treatment, don't you see that what you're doing, that didn't work. But when I knew that there was somebody that telling me options, and you mentioned prevention, have a buddy so you're not alone, using a safe way, Narcan, carry it, all of that. all of that. And that's resources in itself. That's a resource in itself.
Exactly. It's very important.
You guys have been so inspiring today. Judge Lydia, what do you think? What do you have to add, to that? That was in a nutshell, like, how Sixto works.
All too often we gauge our success on if someone's sober and if they're not using substances anymore. But oftentimes that's not what somebody is immediately ready to do. They might be ready to start applying for a housing voucher to get into housing. They might be ready to apply for employment and get a job. And maybe they're ready to get onto Suboxone or methadone, but they're not ready to just go cold turkey and try to stop using. And maybe they're also ready to apply for services, such like disability or some other type of social support. And the reason why we shouldn't gauge our success on someone's sobriety is because if that's all we're focused on, then we miss the ability to provide them supports in their life through other aspects like housing, employment, resources. And when you can get somebody into housing, or you can get somebody into employment and have a steady stream of income, maybe then they might be able to focus on their sobriety. But you don't know when someone's going to be ready to address their recovery. And maybe when they get that stability in their life, that's the time that they're going to be able to do that. But to try to ask them to do that before their life has reached stability is almost setting them up for failure, because how can you address your sobriety and remove drugs from your life when you're living out on the street and you're homeless and you're trying to figure out where you're going to find your next meal? Where are you going to stay the night? Your substance use is what helps you cope with all of that stress, anxiety, and circumstances. And how are you going to be able to remove drugs from your life, the one thing that you have to cope with for all of that stress and anxiety and difficulty, until you're able to get your life in a more stable situation? So what we try to do is to immediately address immediate needs and to talk to the person about what it is that is needed in their life, to get them those things so that maybe we can get them to a place where we can start talking about recovery. But until that happens, our expectation that we're going to have them eliminate substances from their lives is pretty foolish on our end. So our ability to get people those supports is increasingly able to be achieved because of the fact that we are talking to them like regular human beings, connecting them with somebody that they can relate to and somebody they can trust, like Sixto, and to give them the flexibility necessary to get their feet underneath them so that they can start walking, moving forward with their life. And then hopefully when they're ready, to address their recovery. So all the things that Sixto was talking about, he does such phenomenal work in getting those individuals those basic necessities to then work on their recovery.
Absolutely. So it comes down to health, home, community, and then guess what we all have? We have purpose, right? We have purpose. And you know what, Judge Sixto, the time has flown by. I do know that we all do in the state of New Mexico need more Sixtos all over the place. So, how does one go about, getting involved? I know that Sixto not too long ago sent me a job description, to get the word out. I don't know if those positions have been filled, but we are a platform to help all folks in the state of New Mexico give opportunities for positions like this.
So we did have two open positions for case managers. We did fill one, which is going to be for the pretrial services, working with Judge Lydard. So we're really excited about that. She has 5 years sobriety, so we're really excited about all that. We do have another position, which is actually myself and the judge in Rio Arriba County are needing a case manager for peer supported probation, a female, because when Judge Lydard started this program, he always wanted to have a female and a male case manager. And like how he always says, and Militia always says, we want them to be a CPSW, because, our life, our lived experience really does matter. That's what's really helping us, connect with our clients, and like I said, maybe we're not going to get them clean and sober right now, but maybe later down the road, because I've had a few clients that have graduated the program successfully, left the program, and have reached out to me and saying, hey, you know what, I'm sober right now, I haven't drank in this long. So it's just us planting the seed, them having that communication with Judge Lydard, because all my clients, they love Judge Lydard. They love that they're able to speak with him, and he doesn't judge them or anything like that. And he really cares about them. I really know he does. I see it every time that we meet with our clients. So yeah, any CPSWs out there, that are interested in this position, want to give back, especially working with the, really good man, judge, come and apply at, the Rio Arriba County. We'd love to have you, we need more people in this field.
Awesome. That is awesome. I think we have, and we don't want to keep Judge from his job, right? So I know he has to be back in 2 minutes. Final takeaway, guys. Anything, one word, 2 words. Fred, what do you think?
Oh my God. Let's invite the Judge and Sixto back.
Okay.
They just got the Grammy Award for this year's Plática in Latino peer recovery. And I can tell you, I see good things in my magic ball here. And I think I'm going to make sure NABA brings some help and resources to bear on their efforts. So
Thank you.
we're excited to be of service to them, to be of service to the community. Judge Sixto, you honor us with your time. You have inspired many folks. So here's a shout out to both of you from a whole cadre of folks. Desiree, Josie, Juan, Melissa, Leslie, Mercedes, Ronnie, Donald Hume is joining us today. Very cool, Donald. Maria, you have inspired many folks to comment on this live Facebook. So we want you all to know it's been recorded. We will be replaying this, and that'll help recruit some folks for you, Sixto. And Judge, thank you for making such valuable time in your schedule to be here with us. And Sixto, the same for you. Militia, thank you for always leading the effort, being the advocate that you are. All of you are champions, and I want to just say you honor and dignify us here in New Mexico with the work that you do every day, every hour, every minute. And thank you very much for being here. To our Facebook Live audience who has been here with us, thank you for joining us. We appreciate all the comments that you have shared, and it's very gracious of you to have commented and supported our speakers today. With that, we look forward to inviting them back and looking to have you back again for our next Plática. With that, Fred Sandoval, your servidor, along with Milicia Montaño, the OPRI program manager, thank you once again. You all have a good rest of the day, and more importantly, happy holidays to you. Stay safe, stay well.
Thank you, everybody.